So it's a great pleasure to be here in Cork. At the invitation of you all here in the Cork Zen Dojo. And it brings back many personal memories for me being here, sitting here in this room. Particularly, it brings back the memories of wallpaper. I can't remember what it was like back then, but this looks positively clean and very posh and very comfortable. So first, this place is a credit to you all. It is this place of practice that you've created here. So yeah, I sat here in this dojo many times when Porrick and Mary were coordinating all the sittings, and then a nun came, a monk. I can't remember her name. Edel. And around that time, I think I left Cork and moved to Dublin. So I'd sat with Alan in Galway as well, where I'm from, Alan Liebman, who deserves acknowledgement and credit for bringing the teachings to Ireland a quarter of a century ago. And I did an interview with Alan before he moved back to France. Did any of you get a copy of that? Yeah. I just thought it was important to capture his contribution to the Dharma here before he left, and his story was interesting, and it required somebody maybe outside the dojos like myself to sit down and talk to him to find out what he had to say. So that's there as a kind of a record for his work here over those 25 years. And Alan Liebman, I do bow to him and his efforts in Galway, Cork, Dublin, etc. And now things are new, and things are ever new. Things are ever made new. So we acknowledge those that have come before with gratitude, and we realize that life is a dynamic stream of change. And that's one of the fundamental teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. That you must now find your own way here in Cork, as you're doing with great grace. So, it's a great pleasure to be invited down where I sat over a decade ago, before my ordination and transmission and everything else. So I had no idea all those things were coming, and they weren't planned for me at all. Most of these things never are planned, they just emerge. So, and if we seek things often, they run away, So it's funny, I didn't seek any of this teaching, and it just came my way, whether I wanted it or not. So we sit here for our day of Zazen, on this beautiful spring day beside the River Lee, with the freshness of the air and the beautiful daffodils on the altar, at this moment, in this place. Today I want to, as usual with a Dharma talk, I hardly know what's going to come out of my mouth, so we'll see. But I do want to look at a koan from the Book of Serenity. starting point. And the reason it was in my mind when I was coming on down to Cork on the train was I had this whole kind of subconscious idea of the building of a place of practice, the building, the construction of the space of sanctuary. And so the case 4 in the Book of Serenity seemed to just leap out at me, and I took some notes actually. So first I'll read the case. Now, koan practice, of course, is considered more Rinzai, you know, and indeed in the Rinzai Zen tradition they sit with koans and drop them into their meditation, which we don't really do in the Soto way. But nevertheless, the koans are used particularly in teaching to convey the ineffable truths that we are all encountering on the Zafu. And the Book of Serenity, or Equanimity as it's translated here, both translations refer to the same koan collection, was compiled in 13th century of stories, teaching stories that are much older, you know, from really those golden centuries, I suppose, of Zen practice in China in the 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th centuries, the 800s, the 900s particularly. And these were compiled in this particular koan collection, which is highly prized and valued by the Soto school, in the way that the Gateless Gate and the Blue Cliff Record are particularly valued in the Rinzai tradition. And you'll notice if you look at those three central koan collections that there's a lot of crossover between the Blue Cliff Record and the Gateless Gate. And what these koans are often records of encounters between teachers and students. They're teaching stories, and they are our heritage, all of our heritage. They belong to us, those who practice the way. And a koan is a public case. So in a way, it's like a, you could see it as a legal precedent in some ways. So the word koan is kind of legalistic language, really, the original Chinese reference. And so in a way, what we're doing is reanimating precedents from our tradition, you know. We are reliving this, you know, we're trying to find, these are old, ancient stories. So they're dead unless they breathe life into our present moment. So in that sense, we're reanimating them and breathing life back into them. So this case 4 struck me. As far as I know, it's not in any of it's not in the Gateless Gate, and it's not in the Blue Cliff Record. I think it, as far as I know, I may be wrong, but as far as I know, it just appears here in the Book of Serenity, the Book of Equanimity. So I'll read it. The world-honoured one points to the earth. Preface to the assembly. When a speck of dust is raised, the great earth is fully contained in it. It's very well to open new territory and extend your lands with horse and spear. Who is this person who can be master in any place and meet the source in everything? The main case. Attention. When the world-honoured one was walking with his disciples, he pointed to the ground and said, "It would be good to erect a temple here." The god Indra took a blade of grass and stuck it in the ground and said, temple has been erected. The world-honoured one smiled faintly. A precitory verse. On the 100 grass tips, boundless spring. Taking what's at hand, use it freely. Buddha's 16-foot golden body of manifold merit, spontaneously extending a hand, enters the red dust. Within the dust, he can be host coming from another world. Naturally, he's a guest. Wherever you are, be content with your role. Dislike not those more adept than you. Case 4 of the Book of Serenity. Central is the main case. Attention. When the world-honoured one was walking with his disciples, he pointed to the ground and said, "It would be good to erect a temple here." The god Indra took a blade of grass and stuck it in the ground and said, "The temple has been erected." And the world-honoured one faintly smiled. So, it's at hand, and it's always at hand. It's always right there, right here. The blade of grass was under their noses. The sanctuary was there all along. So it is unnecessary to build a basilica or a synagogue or a mosque or a church, because this is the temple and this is the sanctuary. And this blade of grass, this picking of the blade of grass, planting it down, suggests a fragility as well as a vulnerability. So the great monuments that people build are almost futile statements of immortality. They may be beautiful, they may be awe-inspiring, but they are also unnecessary, because suchness is there all along. As it isness, as Dongshan liked to teach, the great founder of the Chaodong, which became Soto. So this blade of grass is transient, it's vulnerable and delicate, just like the present moment, just like the fleeting reality of each moment of our lives and of our existence. Gone. Not even that. Faster than that. Totally ungraspable. Entirely ungraspable. And that's where enlightenment is. That's where awakening is. So, awakening is not out there. The truth is not out there, unlike the X-Files, okay? The truth is not out there. The truth is here at every given moment. And that's why Dogen, Master Dogen, the founder of Soto Zen, realizes that shikantaza, sitting zazen, just sitting, is itself enlightenment. Practice realization, as he calls it. This is it. Now, when we're sitting sometimes with sore legs, it doesn't feel much like enlightenment, does it? But this is the moment. The only truth we have is not in the future and not in the past. It's right now. And even that is ungraspable. Even that cannot be held. So it goes through our fingers. So the idea of the sacred as well is central in this story, because the sanctuary and the temple is here. And in another case, Bodhidharma is asked by Emperor Wu to reveal the sacred truths of the Dharma. And he says, nothing sacred. And Emperor Wu gets angry and says, who are you? Are you this Bodhidharma I heard about? And he says, I don't know. Don't know who I am. Not very satisfying to Emperor Wu, who didn't take it very well. So, what are the sacred truths? Nothing sacred. Which is everything sacred. Everything. So this blade of grass is plucked. And this is the place. So when I open, or when any Zen priest opens their bowing cloth and folds it out, this signifies, here it is, this is where it is, where we are now. The mandala that's created, you know, the kind of cross shape when you lay out the cloth. This is a mandala, just like the Tibetan mandalas, with 4 gates into the mandala. And this is a picture of the universe, of reality. And boom, it's here. So that's why the cloth is put out, you know? That's where we are, right here. Now, why then pluck the blade of grass? So if it's already there, then what's the need of acknowledgement? What is the need of Indra to go and plant it? Is it necessary? Is it required? That's very important. It's related to Dogen's question. Why sit Zazen at all? So if we already have Buddha nature, as is our understanding, we already have Buddha nature. I think it's the Taggada Garbha teaching of everyone has Buddha nature. Then why don't we just get on with our lives and do what we do and not sit Zazen and not offer incense and bow and everything else? So this bothered Dogen, so he went to China. And he really resolved this question in the Genjo Koan. Have any of you studied or read the Genjo Koan? Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful, central chapter in Dogen's masterwork, the Shobo Genzo. And at the end of the Genjo Koan, Master Dogen really recognizes that practice is required. That awakening may be there, but it's latent until it is realized. So, the blade of grass may be there, but it must be realized, plucked, presented. So, at the end of the Genjo Koan, the image that Dogen uses is, he draws on an earlier story of a fanning the air. That the air is there, but with fanning, it manifests. It becomes This is practice. So fanning is the practice. And this is Zazen. So we need to sit and we need to practice to realize whatever. What can you say? What can you say? So it's not sufficient for awakening to say, to not acknowledge, not realize that the sanctuary is here. So Indra has a role in manifesting that awareness. And Indra is, of course, a Vedic god. And as usual, Buddhism moves within its cultural sphere and absorbs Indra, into its world, and moves to Japan and China and absorbs elements of Taoism, and moves to Japan and absorbs elements of the kami. So each Zen temple has a local deity which it also honors, and moves to Cork and speaks with a Cork accent. So, and finds its expression here. That's very important, and that's why what this Jojo does is important. So the temple may already have been built, but the realization must happen. And that's why the Zen way is a little bit like selling water by the river. So the river is there and people are thirsty, and all they have to do is drink. That's all. So what's the role of the teacher? To help, not to give them something that isn't already available, but to help that process, to help them see the water is there. It's not to say, water €1.50 a drink, by the river. It's giving what's free. The jewel is free, it's given freely. The most valuable thing is beyond any price, any worth. So the most valuable thing in the world, in the universe, is a blade of grass. Is a single blade of grass. In one of the commentaries to this koan, when the temple is built, one of the commentators says, repairs won't be easy, which is a wonderful acknowledgement of the damage of the world as well, of the not only the fragility of the sanctuary that is built, that is here, but also an acknowledgement of the suffering and damage of our lives and of the world that we're in. So for this blade of grass and for this forest clearing where this koan takes place, repairs won't be easy. It's a funny statement, but it's profound and deeply moving. The blade of grass is always at hand. The sanctuary is under our noses if we could but see it. must continue to engage her. So what we seek must be given up on the cushion. We must stop seeking. Stop looking for anything from our zazen. We shall arrive at each moment on the cushion. So, suchness of the moment. The candle burning and the people walking on the street. Shay opens the window, in comes the air. This is the truth. And nothing in the universe is hidden.